Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for Jack Hirsch on a Monday morning with Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook. Good morning to my co-host, Jack Hirsch, Boxing Hall of Fame writer and all-around sports guru. How are you, Jack?
Hey, good, Keith. A lot of excitement this past weekend.
We got a lot to unpack here. Welcome to everybody on the McGrath Podcast Network and on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're finding us now or later. Lots to talk about. We got the WBC we'll get into. We'll get into the NCAA selections, and I'm okay with what went on here last night, but a lot of people probably won't be. Maybe we'll get to some NBA. We'll see. But so much unpacking the WBC last night. What if you're a traditional baseball fan? I know Gen Z and X and Alpha and whatever think 2-1 baseball games are boring. That was an exciting game last night. If you weren't excited watching this game, and there's one play that we'll talk about to me that turned this game around and set it up for the USA to win after they got behind early. It was just an exciting baseball game all around. Defense.
Let me tell you the problem, Keith, with the WBC. We don't get excited until the late stages of the tournament. Then we love it. Then it has a feeling of the World Cup in soccer. It has a feeling even of the World Series in baseball, the NFL playoffs. We get excited towards the end. And yesterday in the semifinals, the United States and the Dominican Republic, we're excited because there are a bunch of Hall of Famers on the field, future Hall of Famers on the field. A lot of great players who want to win this game pretty badly, representing their countries. A lot of pride is on the line. And ironically, a lot of these guys are teammates. 100%. They're going to be back together. They're going to be mixing together. And Keith, I got a confession. I had some mixed feelings in a way, forgetting myself. Obviously, I'm rooting for the USA. But when I see Austin Wells hit a double, I'm thinking, way to go, Austin, because he's a Yankee.
Yeah, I know.
He's my catcher. And I'm saying, continue doing this. When you leave the World Baseball Classic, I want you to pitch this well. Duval comes out of the bullpen for the DI. He's a Yankee middle reliever. I want him to pitch well during the season. Aaron Judge uncorks a great throw to third base. And I'm thinking,
changes the entire game because they stopped running. I know we talked about it before, and I had this written down as the number one key to the game. Throwing out Tatis at third base, and by the way, he can't make the last out at third base. He was out by a pretty good margin. Great throw, though. That's the second time Judge has done that in the series at third base to end an inning, or not during this tournament. But it killed their aggressiveness on the base as well. Should have been trying to score on that play in the fifth inning.
When you look at the box score, you're not going to realize Judge's contribution because he did make it out in a key situation with runners on second and third, one out early in the game, and he struck out. That was the bad thing with Judge. Otherwise, he got a base hit before that. He got robbed of a home run on a great catch by Julio Rodriguez.
Yep.
Who went over the fence, snagged the ball, robbed Judge of a home run. But when Judge threw Tatis out at third base with a perfect throw, it was a 2-for-1 deal, Keith. It's the type of deals you like when you go in the store. 2 for 1. 2 for 1. Because the next time Tatis was rounding second base, he stopped. He should have gone to third, even though the ball wasn't hit to Judge. The ball was hit in left center. He remembered being thrown out by Judge. And even John Smoltz, who broadcast the event, not my favorite broadcaster, great pitcher, but John Smoltz was puzzled. He said, you'd think Tatis would be on third base. And I was stunned because it would have been an automatic thing for Tatis to go to third, but he remembered being thrown out by Judge. And then late in the game, Austin Wells, we think he should have scored from third base. And whether he was held up by the coach, the coach's body language didn't seem clear, but it looked like the coach held him up. And that had a bearing on things.
Well, because it didn't just affect the players. It affects the third base coach. He sees what's happening out there. And that ball wasn't hit to Judge, I don't think, either in the seventh inning when Wells was out.
But the Judge effect carried over.
They got
throwing a guy out.
And Danny and JB, we'll get to that strike. I know you guys have already brought it up, but we'll get to it. I mean, it's a big play. And I got a lot of, again, I have some feelings on this whole thing. But And I know Danny will have some strong ones. And Jack probably will too. But this had everything, right? You just mentioned almost everything. You had the great defensive plays by Judge, by Rodriguez on the other side. Bobby Witt turned a huge double play in the fifth inning, and Blake made another diving stop in this game. He's flashed that glove.
Bobby Witt, to me, you could go over the list of shortstops. He's the best shortstop in Major League, in the world.
He's one of the
best.
In
my opinion. You could come up with other names. You could debate other names. But Bobby Witt, to me, is the best.
He's one of the top 3 players in baseball. He's right behind Ohtani and Judge in my mind. I mean, I think Bobby
you can make that argument. I mean, it's debatable, but you can make that argument.
Yeah, you can. So you see these guys out there just giving it all. You don't think not you. Sometimes we think they don't want to be there. They're not excited. You see Bednar get out of that jam in the 7th inning, and then him come off the field excited. Just so much to unpack here. We'll get to the strike because a lot of people are talking about it. Danny thinks that didn't turn the game around.
We're talking about the last strike of the game.
Yeah, Danny had a comment where he said it turned the game around. That was the last play of the game, so it didn't turn the game around. You know what turned the game around was Judge's throw. Turned the game around. I'm sorry, that's the play that turned it around.
I mean, look, there was another debatable strike call that looked like a ball on Soto.
Yeah.
Okay, it looked that way as well, and it happens. I mean, what are you going to say? It's hard with the strike zone. You know the ironic part about it, Keith, outside of those 2 missed calls, it's a little consolation to the DR. Yeah. I think the home plate umpire called a really good game. And the USA got breaks. There was one pitch that was a little bit on the outside that Severino was complaining about. Started for the Dominican Republic. He thought it was strike 3. And he was really upset. But the replay did show the umpire got that right. And the crowd was booing that call, but the ump got that call right. So it did benefit the USA. Look, the USA did benefit on a couple of calls, in the strike zone. I don't think anyone's going to argue that, but it happens during virtually every game. There are missed calls on the strike zone. It's virtually impossible to get it all right.
I've come to the conclusion I'm okay with ABS because umpires aren't good enough, and they've made this problem themselves. But last night, this guy had a bit of a low strike zone, I think, but he was getting calls. He was calling them, I think, consistently both ways, and you should be able to adjust to that. That last play, that last pitch, I'm sorry. There's 2 strikes on you and the game's on the line. You're swinging at that pitch. I don't care if it's a ball or not. It's too close to be able to take. You made a good point before the show. Miller set him up nicely. That's baseball. I set you up on a 101-mile-an-hour fastball and then throw you an off-speed pitch.
It's hard. You're full on the off-speed pitch. You kind of get frozen. I'm not critical of the batter.
Good
hitter. Look, it happened once. Was it Miller? I don't recall. But the catcher got crossed up. He was expecting a breaking ball. He got a fastball. Yeah. And the catchers, they say, could get hurt. I can never fully figure that out. I understand the logic.
Yeah.
You're relaxing, expecting a breaking ball. And when the fastball comes, you think the catcher could adjust very quickly. But I'm not a catcher. I call one game in Little League. That doesn't make me qualified. But Miller did, set things up. He threw 101, 102 miles per hour. Then you throw a slider. It's hard to make the adjustment when you're looking for fastball. When someone throws 101, 102, you got to look for fastball. Because if you don't look for fastball, you don't have a prayer of hitting the ball. But if you look for fastball, at least there's a chance you're going to hit an off-speed pitch.
Well, that's why he should be swinging and trying to foul that pitch off. A good hitter is going to take a whack at that and try to get a piece of it. So it's close. And listen,
but you can't foul him if it's out of the strike zone. It's out of the strike zone. How often we praise
millimeters?
How often do we praise batters for showing discipline and taking a close pitch, having the guts to take a close pitch and work their way to a walk?
Yeah,
we praise him for being smart and having all this plate discipline. And when it goes against them and the ump misses the call, we say, well, you have to swing at anything close. Of course you have to swing at anything close. You don't want you put your fate in the umpire's hand.
Game situation means everything, right? And listen, I want to give JB a quick shout out. He's in all transparency, he's an Orioles fan. And he said Gunnar had to play last night, and Gunnar would come up big, and Gunnar hit a big home run.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Hey, what did you think of the pregame show? I don't know whether you saw it. I enjoyed watching it. Kevin Burkhardt, A-Rod, Big Papi, and Jeter. I enjoy watching the guys. I do.
That's their normal team, right?
No. But to me, they're humorous. They're entertaining. But before the game, they all came up with predictions. Now, I don't mind how they're predicting the outcome will come out. Jeter predictably predicted the USA would win the game. Big Papi predictably predicted the Dominican Republic would win the game. A-Rod, we never knew it, but he predicted that DR would win the game. But the thing that gets me with A-Rod, he puts on the Dominican Republic cap proudly with Big Papi. Wasn't A-Rod born in the United States? Didn't he?
He was, but that's his heritage.
I know it's, but but you spend your whole darn life here. And you're rooting for it seemed he's rooting for the Dominican Republic over the United States. Now listen, if you're picking them to beat the United States, I'm fine with that. I would have been fine with Jeter picking the Dominican Republic to win the game because that's a prediction. You have to be honest on your prediction. But he was like joining Big Papi as if he was rooting from when you put the cap on. Did
A-Rod ever play in the?
No, years ago when he was playing when he was playing for the Yankees, and they were talking about the World Baseball Classic. He says, "I want to play for the Dominican Republic." On reflection,
he committed to him in 2009.
You want to know why it's not such a bad thing now? Because other players are doing it, even though they've been in the United States their whole life. But at the time, I didn't care for it. I don't care for the whole setup with the WBC. Like you were joking around a day ago saying Austin Wells says he feels like he's more and more Dominican.
Every day he feels more Dominican.
Yeah, I mean, come on. But he plays for the DR. And you know what got me too, which I love the picture? Austin Wells hits a double. They're one run down the Dominican Republic. And all the DR players, you see them in the dugout taking a look at him. I wonder what's going through their mind. They're probably saying, yeah, the American boy is helping our team. Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Listen, for A-Rod, a little context on A-Rod, because I just looked it up real quick. In 2006, he considered playing for the U.S. He did not play after he withdrew. But in 2009, he actually committed to play for the Dominican Republic, but pulled out due to a hip injury. So he was going to play for his
yeah, I mean, now it's okay because players are doing it. It just struck me wrong. Okay, I mean, but it's going on the whole tournament. Now the tournament's got to get set up. Look, Keith, if another country can't field a representative team, they shouldn't be in the tournament. Chaz Chisholm played for Great Britain. If they can't put a representative team on the field, I mean, they shouldn't be there. It's that simple. I mean, look what's going on with Italy. I mean, Italy and Venezuela tonight.
Great game.
You wonder the political implications if Venezuela gets there and they're playing the USA. I mean, you kind of wonder. We don't like to talk about that stuff on this show, and we're not going to get deeply into that stuff. And I don't want to because this is a sports show. But you can't hide the feeling. You know, same way when the USA played Canada. You know, when there's a little tension between the countries for whatever reason, I think the game takes on a bigger meaning. And that's why the 1980 United States Olympic hockey team is so renowned because of the USA's relationship with Russia. If the United States had a great relationship with Russia, that wouldn't have been as big a story. It still would have been big, the underdogs, but not nearly as big.
Of course not. And listen, I think Italy's going to win tonight, by the way.
That would be a nice win. I'm going to tell you something, Keith, and I would be rooting all out for the USA to win if they played Italy. But you've heard this term before. If the USA has to lose to anyone, you'd want them to lose to a Cinderella team like Italy in a sense, because it's such a heartwarming story. But then again, they're so much better than Italy, it would tick me off. If they lost the second time to Italy.
I think it might be 8-0 the other way if they play them, quite frankly.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I think it would be like Joe Louis, Matt Schmeling, the rematch.
Yeah, I think
Joe Louis, after getting stopped, not Schmeling out in one round. I think they would obliterate Italy if they played them again.
I think you're right, and listen, and that takes nothing away from Italy. I told you guys yesterday that if it was up to me, I'd have Brian Cashman on a plane to Miami to hire Francisco Cervelli as my manager.
One thing, I don't think you ever took into consideration, Keith, and this isn't about the Yankees, so I'm going to just go over it very quickly. Whoever manages the New York Yankees, let's say it's Francisco Cervelli, Brian Cashman did what you said. He's not going to. Any manager has to follow the analytics model. All of them. Yeah, but any manager they hire has to go by what the analytics department says. You have a certain amount of leeway to make your own decision, but it's within certain parameters.
Well, then I guess we can put a computer in the dugout as well, as behind the plate. We don't need managers either. That'll be next. We don't need managers. We got a guy who can read a computer printout. That's all we need.
We got, and we're going to get to this another time. I'm a little ticked at you, Keith. A little ticked off at you when we were talking about Yankee retired numbers.
Yeah.
The way you're advocating for Joe Torre, not even close.
He won 3 World Series in 4 years.
Casey Stengel's record in the 12 years with a Joe Keith. You don't mean to tell me you couldn't have gotten a lot of managers and they wouldn't have done the same thing?
I don't know, because nobody.
I know. Give me a break. Fuck Joe Walter. They would have won the same way, those series.
Before, and I don't know how we got on this, but that's fine. I'm going to continue down this road for at least a second. What manager coexisted for as long as Joe Torre did with George Steinbrenner? Anybody?
Well, they won there. Billy Martin was a better manager than.
He was winning. Billy got fired. He was winning. He won 2 World Series and got fired. He didn't get. Listen, if Billy's numbers retired, then
Joe did a great job with the Yankees. Joe Torre, you got to give me, and he followed up by doing a good job with the Dodgers after he left the Yankees. That's a discussion. That's a discussion for another time.
Let me leave it with this: you could not just put any other manager in that dugout, and they would have won 3 out of 4 World Series, because Joe managed a certain way to be able to, coexist with George and all the other madness that went on there. So, not everybody was Joe Torre at that time. Just saying. I want to go back to one thing here. This didn't tarnish the game last night. That's not the one that I saw. Anyway, Danny had a comment about that last play. Nobody's going to remember that strike about a month from now. And it's not going to tarnish us.
The Seahawks going to remember it, and they're going to complain about it, because when
it was in the final, they might. But I don't think they'll remember it.
I don't think you can really criticize a team that sometimes complains after the game. They're really upset about something. Like Keith, I coached at one point junior varsity baseball in high school. And I remember we played one game. We ultimately won in extra innings. We were so much better than the other team, but every ball was hit on the nose of the fielder. I never saw anything like it. And we tied it up in the last inning and then won in extra innings. And had we lost that game, and you asked me, I would have said we were absolutely the better team. I mean, how do we lose? You hear it all the time. Patrick Ewing says we're going to talk college basketball later. we were a better team than Villanova. He says, I said it then, I say it now. And Georgetown was a better team than Villanova. The Baltimore Colts were a better team than the New York Jets, not that day, but they lost them in the Super Bowl. The Russians were absolutely better than the United States.
They would have won 99 out of 100.
Not even close, but they lost to them. But let me say this. You put the DR's best player against the USA's best player, and you give them a 162-game schedule, the USA might win more games than the DR. They might.
It's going to be very close. Those are two very good teams. But Soto can't be after the game saying there's no doubt in people's mind who the best team in baseball is.
And Soto early in the game, let me say something. I don't dislike Soto, even though he left the Yankees to go to the Mets. I really don't dislike him.
I never wanted him in the
Was
first.
a full hit early in the game. You know, a good defensive left fielder would have came in and caught the ball. He let it bounce for a hit. He didn't want to take a chance. He was kind of timid on that.
That's MO. He did make a nice catch earlier in that game, though, going into left center. He made a nice play there, but still.
So listen, Soto's going to have some great years ahead of him. He's going to have some great seasons ahead of him. And I know he might not seem to be happy to be a New York Met right now, but better days will be ahead. Soto was scrutinized in this series because he looked like he was enthusiastic. He looked like he was happy. He looked like he was on the New York Yankees again, having fun. Last year didn't look that way with the Mets.
Well, we can understand why, but
his relationship with Lindor supposedly was so-so.
They need to improve that if they're going to win. Michael. Good morning, Michael, across the pond in England. Good to have you with us. The rules are pretty much the same in this, except for there is no ABS, obviously, like that they have in Major League Baseball, as we've talked about.
They'll have it for the next series.
Pretty much the rules are the same, though. There's some pitch limitations on the pitchers, but teams put those on.
But that's why it's compromised. It's compromised the pitch limitations. Steens pitched a real good game for the United States.
Without his best,
he had an 80-pitch limit.
He wasn't dominant last night, though. But he would. That's how good he is because he pitched great, even when he didn't have his best stuff last night.
But the thing about it is, they would go longer with certain pitchers, a little longer if there wasn't pitch limits. The managers would be allowed to play it like it was the last game of the World Series. But the thing about it too, Keith, everyone is sensitive about accusations. If it's a manager of another team or whatever, or any conflict of interest, if a pitcher pitches too much and it's not your pitcher, you can figure out what the heck. You're not watching him as carefully as far as overusing him, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, the pitch limits are also a product of when we play this, right? They're probably at about where they would be in spring training. If they were pitching in spring training, he could have gone up to 80 pitches. I think he threw 71 pitches last night, if I'm not mistaken.
Listen, whoever wins this tournament doesn't lay claim to being the best in the world, because between the United States, the Dominican Republic, Japan, Puerto Rico, I mean, mix and match them. It's basically they're all the same as far as how good they're going to be. Maybe I should have mentioned Venezuela, because if they win the tournament, they have a talented bunch. But, we'll see. But yesterday was a World Series type atmosphere, a 7-game World Series type atmosphere, even though it was the semifinals. Let me ask you this. Do you think the USA might have a little bit of an emotional letdown for tomorrow night? The final game?
They got a day to recover. I think they'll be fine. And there is a possibility, because to a lot of people, this was a championship game, right? These were the best two teams, at least the best two teams left. You had a great line, Jack. I didn't want to steal it from you. You didn't use it. When I said Soto said there's no doubt in anybody's mind who the best team in baseball is, who was it?
I said it before the show. Yeah, come back to Soto, say, Juan is right. Japan, the best team got eliminated. Japan.
Right.
Tell Juan, I agree with him. The best team is no longer playing in the tournament, you got to feel bad for Japan.
I agree.
That would kind of quiet them down a little. But look, it's easy to make Juan Soto out to be a villain because he left the Yankees. He signed a big contract. He had every right to do it.
He's not a villain to me.
Juan Soto's not a bad guy. He's not a troublemaker. I don't even think he's a prima donna, even though that's a little bit his image. He was entitled to go to any team he wanted to. You know what's interesting, Keith, about all these signings in baseball in general? If a team had a vision of how the market would go up years from now, imagine the Washington Nationals paid him a couple of $100 million more, and they would do it now if they had the chance, and overpaid him to begin with. Because now with the Yankees, they're getting a bargain with Judge with $40 million a year.
They are
right now. When you look at it, but at the time you thought, wow, the Yankees stretched it out and they paid him top dollar. That was our thought at the time.
Everything goes up in value. Listen, there was one comment too. You had talked about analytics, right? And anybody who's a manager, Chris is talking about how there's sports analytic university programs, which I get, and you need zero baseball experience to get a job. This isn't new, though. Billy Beane started this with the A's, Moneyball. He hired Paul I'm going to say his name wrong, Paul DePesto, I think that was his name. He was his analytics guy, had no experience, ended up, I think, going to Toronto, and now he's running the Browns. And Bill James actually.
Bill James, I'm reading all his logic, and I'm going to tell you something.
Bill James actually started this.
Bill James was ahead of his time. I never understood baseball's logic. Everyone is dug in a certain way, and everyone just follows the lead and doesn't question it, like the cleanup hitter. What stupidity. A guy hits fourth. A guy hitting fourth should be hitting first or second because you're going to get him up more times during the season. The Yankees get it. They back Judge second. Back in the day, you'd say, oh, no, you can't. The leadoff hitter gets on. He steals second. You bunt him to third, and the next guy hits a sacrifice fly or cleanup. You're hitting fourth. What are the odds of the first three guys getting on base? And then you clean the bases up. It is so dumb.
There were some teams that did that. The Royals with Whitey Herzog would bat Brett and McRae 1 and 2 a lot before Willie Wilson got.
What you're doing, Whitey Herzog was smart. He was ahead of his time with that logic. I mean, there's certain plays that don't measure up analytics-wise. I'm going to tell you what drives me crazy, and you probably disagree. Giving up an out to move a runner from second to third. These outs are a commodity. You can't afford to give them out. What are the chances of you hitting a deep enough fly ball and getting them in from third? And the one run,
it all depends on the situation. It all depends on the situation. If the situation calls for a bunt late in the game, early in the game, I'm not giving up outs. Earl Weaver was the same way. He'd play for 3-run home runs, and I wasn't always in favor of that. People think analytics are brand new, right? And Earl Weaver was another guy who used analytics with his pitchers and his bench. He had index cards, hundreds of index cards. He didn't have computers at the time, but people were using analytics long before Bill James and long before Billy Beane. We just didn't talk about it. But
certain analytics are good. Gunnar Henderson, you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Why did Gunnar Henderson start? Because he was 7 for 9 off Severino.
Those aren't analytics. Those are looking at numbers and doing the.
But those numbers are undeniable. Sometimes it's not enough of a body of work. If one guy is 0 for 5 against the pitcher and the other guy is 2 for 8, I'm not going to necessarily play the guy 2 for 8 and look at the analytics. That's not enough of a body of work and not enough of a success rate. But when you go 7 for 9, look, Deion Sanders, when they did that documentary 30 for 30,
yeah,
and Deion Sanders was a lightning rod when he played for the Atlanta Braves. I'm talking baseball now. Deion Sanders, they put him on the roster because he was 8 for 16 against David Cohn. He had phenomenal success hitting against David Cohn. And that's enough of a body of work to me, enough evidence to say, hey, there's something there. I want him in the lineup.
There's a place for, when I get into analytics, I'm talking more about some of the stupid metrics like barrel rate and, exit velocity, launch angles, just all this stupid stuff. There are still numbers, and bunting still is important. What matchups are important. That's not really analytics. I guess at the heart of it, it is.
You want to have better analytics. I'm not against bunting in the right situation.
Yeah, Danny's.
Not many situations I would give an out and bunt on. But I could understand late in the game, runners on first, maybe you want to give up no outs, you want to get them to second, you're willing to give up an out. I get all that.
Yeah.
But where the analytics fail, Keith, is the majority of guys asked to bunt don't know how to bunt.
Well, that's a problem.
Yet the bunt sign is on, yet they're called on to bunt. I mean, it's absurd.
Well,
what was the line when Billy Martin asked Reggie to bunt? When was the last time Reggie bunted in high school?
That's
just because the situation may be called for? Come on,
that's a bad comparison because he was just trying to show Reggie up that night. That's all.
No, not the first time he asked him to bunt. Then he took the bunt sign off. Yeah, Billy did.
Nobody has their cleanup hitter bunting except Billy. He was trying to show up Reggie. That's a different story. Back to your original premise, though, the fact that guys don't know how to bunt, that's baseball's problem. They don't teach it, and they never bunt. So you're right. Why you can't call for a bunt now, and a guy's never done it in his whole life. It's just ridiculous. But there are times to do it. You don't do it early in the game. You don't give up outs in the second and third inning because there's no Mark Belangers and Bud Harrelsons in the game today that you want them to bunt anytime there's a guy on first base.
I think before we wrap up the World Baseball Classic, I just want to say what this tournament probably means to players. Look, you consider a guy like Aaron Judge, who I guess right now would be being a Yankee fan, my favorite player. I love the way he conducts himself on and off the field. I mean, he's the epitome of everything good in the game from what we can see. But Aaron Judge might never win a World Series with the Yankees. There's parity in Major League Baseball. It's very hard to win one World Series now. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. So this World Baseball Classic, the game Tuesday, takes on extra importance. It's not the same as winning a World Series, but it's impactful because you can always say, look, I was part of the championship team in the World Baseball Classic. I have that legacy. It's meaningful. I thought that way when Mike Trout struck out in the last World Series against his then teammate Ohtani. I was kind of rooting for not just the USA, but for Mike Trout.
I can't agree with that. It's a great honor to win this tournament. If he never wins a World Series, winning this year or two more times or whatever will never erase the stain of not winning a World Series.
No. But it does absolutely count for something. A guy who never got to the NBA Finals, Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony could say, well, I won an NCAA tournament. I won 3 different Olympic gold medals. I never got an NBA title, unfortunately, but I was a champion a few times over in big spots. So, you got to give Carmelo Anthony his due for that. And I didn't always do it in the beginning, but the more I think about it, kudos to Carmelo Anthony. He stuck it out for 3 USA Olympic teams. And at Syracuse, he helped deliver a national championship. So to me, he's a winner, even though his game didn't translate into that when he was in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to call Carmelo a loser or Aaron Judge a loser if he never wins a World Series. Danny talked about Dan Marino comparing him to Judge yesterday, and I don't think Dan Marino's a loser because he never won a World Series.
No, they're not losers. Don't come on, Keith. No one calls them losers.
They are not losers, and I would never call them that. But it still is a blot on their resume if they don't win the ultimate championship. The Super Bowl is the ultimate championship in football. The World Series, the NBA.
It's a void, despite what the players say. Marino, Charles Barkley, they go to the Hall of Fame. They've had great careers. But it's a missing piece, unfortunately. But in baseball, it's harder. You have less control.
There's a great comparison, too. Charles Barkley is judged differently. He never won a championship in the NBA because of running into Jordan a lot. and other players. But
Well,
he
Patrick Ewing, the Knicks beat Houston that game. Patrick Ewing won an NBA title. I think of Pat Riley, his time in New York. With Pat Riley, I'm sure, even though he would deny it now, he would give back one of his Showtime Laker championships to have the one in New York. Because if they won it in New York, Riley's legacy in New York would have been really, so much better than it is now. Now he's looked at as a villain.
He'd have a
wow, he delivered us a championship. Riley would have been, if he's not legendary now, he certainly would have been that.
He's already legendary, number one. He's legendary already. But he'd be the only guy with statues on both coasts, because he'd have a statue in Madison Square Garden as well, by the way, if he wanted to.
Maybe they would have given him the stock and he wouldn't have left. He would have been running the organization.
Maybe. Anyway, good stuff there. Lot to talk about. We had a lot to unpack there, so we covered a lot of time. But another big story yesterday, obviously, which would have been the number one story any other year. We're not playing the WBC. The NCAA selection show was yesterday. There was a little mystery about the number ones because of Florida getting knocked out by Vanderbilt in blowout fashion, really, on Saturday. But they do maintain the number one seed. Duke is the overall number one seed. Michigan is, I believe, the second seed. Or maybe Arizona is. But Florida gets the fourth one. I don't have any argument there because there's no other team I can see elevating into the top four there. And Houston's probably the only team that had an argument, and they didn't get to their conference championship. So
funny. I always like to take a peek, Keith, at these teams that no one has heard of, these universities that no one has heard of virtually. And you talk about long shots. They're longer than a long shot, for anything. And one of the schools that baffled me, and this is funny, I thought it said Queens College. It said Queens University. And Queens College is a city university in New York school. And I immediately text my son-in-law, who's a big fan, what on earth are they doing in the tournament? This is insane. I'm thinking Queens College, and he looked it up. He said, no, it's Queens University. Queens College, the City University School, has an 8-19 record. They're not being invited into any tournament. And my logic is, in this day and age, an 8-19 team could be given consideration.
I thought that for a minute, I thought it was too, and then I looked; it was in North Carolina. So there are, there's going to be some interesting stories here. I like the number one picks. The biggest look at all the teams that were on the bubble, played themselves off. Oklahoma doesn't have an argument in my mind. Auburn doesn't have an argument in my mind.
Auburn, I know they were 17 and 16, Keith. They have an argument. You're telling me, okay, not to penalize a team who is willing to take on the toughest possible opposition. They have the second toughest schedule of all the teams in the NCAA tournament, and they beat some good teams. They beat some legitimately top teams this year.
And that, but they had 16 losses at some point. The first thing is
willing to take on the best opposition.
First of all,
you're penalizing them from willing to do that, and like I said, they beat some good teams. If they didn't beat some really good teams, fine, they should be out. But I really think on strength of schedule and having some success on strength of schedule, they should have been in.
The NCAA has never put an at-large team in with 16 losses. Never. And never a team that was one game over 500 for the year. They were 17 and 16.
They were looking at the optics. They were looking at the record. And it's always easy to justify something as your evidence. Oh, they have 16 losses. So that's our excuse not to put them in.
Well, the only two teams, and the two teams that are going to be talked about as would have been dropped, would have been Miami of Ohio and probably SMU, who are going to play each other. And I think it's fair. They're playing each other in the first four, and Miami gets a chance to prove they belong. They can play their way into the...
Why is every headline I'm seeing about the tournament is talking about Miami of Ohio.
Yep.
Miami of Ohio, there's a good chance they're one and done, and they're definitely going to be two and done at best for them. And why are they the headline news? I mean, they were the 340th ranked as far as strength of schedule went.
Because they were 1-0.
They had the weakest possible schedule, but they took care of business.
They were the only undefeated team in Division One.
Shouldn't it count a little bit? Consider how you won your games. I'm just asking. Miami of Ohio had several games that they just barely scraped through, barely against weak teams. They were winning. I'm a boxing guy. They were winning split decisions against the weakest fighters.
Who gets the belt?
Our wins.
But who gets the belt at the end of that split decision? The guy who had more points. He's the winner. All they did was win until their last game, obviously, and they didn't play well against UMass. And they were the last at-large team in, so they cut it as close as they could. I believe this team should be in. I'm okay with them putting them in the first four, and if they get in, they're an 11th seed.
I would have loved for them to have this little mini playoff against Auburn with the winner getting in. Maybe not a full game, maybe a half a game. Let them butt heads and the winner gets in. Kind of like two people lining up for a race. The winner advances.
But I
will say this. There's no perfect system. Every year we hear these complaints. Who was left out? I mean, it's unavoidable. I mean, be college basketball. We have in college football. We had the controversy with Notre Dame in college football. But in basketball, the NCAA, you know it's going to be more than one team.
Well,
that they were hard done.
At least in football, you're arguing that you're the 12th best team in football. Here, it's the 68th best team. I mean, if you're arguing about that, then just go home because you don't belong anyway. I'm sorry.
I think this would take a little of the fun away of it. But if you didn't consider conferences and just listed the 68 best teams in whatever order, whether that would do more justice. But
you would leave out 3/4 of the conference champions in basketball if you did that. And that's not fair. Yeah. That's what this tournament's for. This tournament's for conference champions. That's what it's for.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
But there are a number of teams in this tournament when you look at the pre-tournament favorites and you look at the predictions, they're living off their reputations. I don't think certain of these universities are as strong as they've been in the past. I mean, Connecticut, because they're Connecticut with Dan Hurley, is, given their due. Connecticut, I mean, they played really poorly at the end of the season here. I watched the game against St. John's. They were out of whack. They got upset right at the end of the season before the Big East tournament.
St. John's is really good. But
St. John's overall is weak. St. John's to me is Final Four. That's my prediction. They're coming out
Final Four as well.
And Duke, I don't like the way Duke is looking. But Duke has the reputation. The injuries are a factor. Don't get me wrong.
Caleb Foster is a big loss for them, for sure.
It's a very big loss. But I just don't like the way Duke is looking. They're showing no level of dominance. Not that you necessarily have to show a level of dominance, but I think because they're Duke, people have them advancing. Because that the name has a certain mystique, a magic.
They're also a really good team. They only lost 3 games. They're the number 1 team in the country, so it isn't like they haven't.
But if you've been watching them recently, they've been struggling.
There are examples, but I don't know if Duke is the best one. Kansas is a good one, living on reputation. They got a great team, but they're up and down.
You forget the Duke-Florida game a week ago, in which Florida misses a shot at the buzzer that would have won them the game. And when Duke had pulled away by 8 points, they had a 16-point swing. You thought, oh, Duke's asserting themselves, yet Duke fell back. Those are red flags.
Arizona's probably the best team.
Arizona would have, I think they're the consensus favorite in this tournament.
I don't have them getting to the final.
They played Hofstra the first game, I think, right?
Arizona plays Long Island, LIU.
LIU. No, I'm thinking the New York link. Hofstra's in New York, Long Island. and LIU, even though they're not in Long Island per se. They're like, their campus is primarily in downtown Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Okay. Why they call Long Island University if they're in downtown Brooklyn? And they're the Barclays Center.
I didn't realize that, actually. Hofstra's got Alabama in the first round, actually. That's who Hofstra plays. So there's two teams, theoretically Long Island teams. You got 4 teams, 3 teams anyway, right from the New York City area, obviously, with St. John's, LIU, and Houston, and Hofstra. Listen, there's 2 teams I'm going to give you in this first round that have a chance to advance at least one game. I like High Point in their first round matchup. Who are they playing here? I forgot who they're playing. I'm going to give you 2 upsets, and I'll give you my final 4 as well. But I do like McNeese State as well. By the way, they won a game last year with Will Wade as their coach, got him the job basically at NC State. But they're going to play. Where are they? Come on, I just had them up. No, I lost them. Maybe they got kicked out. McNeese State will play Vanderbilt, and I think Vanderbilt is going to be a bit down. I like McNeese State to get to the final. To the Sweet 16. I think they've beaten Vanderbilt, and I think they beat Nebraska out of the Big Ten. And High Point's a very underrated team, again, out of North Carolina. They got to the NCAA for the first time last year. They've got Wisconsin in the first round, who I think is a bit overrated in the Big Ten.
Wisconsin is considered a dark horse by a number of people. They're considered a threat, actually.
I know they are, but I like High Point to knock them out in the first round. They'll get beat later on. So my dark horse in this whole tournament, and it's not that deep dark horse, it's Arizona. It's Gonzaga, who I think will beat Arizona in the Elite 8 and get to the Final Four.
Gonzaga has had high-impact teams for years and years, and they've come up short. It never gotten over the top. I mean, can you imagine having one of their weaker teams in years coming into the tournament and then doing some damage? You know, I'm intrigued by looking at these ultimate dark horses. Could we have another Butler-type team that comes out of basically nowhere? I mean, you look at a team like Furman, who is going to be playing UConn in the first round. I mean, who the heck here's a Furman? I mean, what odds can you get to pick Furman to win the whole thing? And California Baptiste, who's playing Kansas.
I disrespected California Baptist the other day because I forgot to mention they were playing for a championship yesterday. So Danny called me out on that. Danny's got UCLA getting up.
You know, it's interesting too. I mean, ultimately, I'm looking at St. John's, who I really like to get to the Final Four.
As do I.
But if they win and Duke keeps winning in their bracket, they're going to meet in the Sweet 16.
They'll meet in the Elite 8, I believe, isn't it?
I think the Sweet 16, and the winner goes to the Elite 8.
Yeah, you're right, Sweet 16.
And that would maybe be the game of the tournament to me, the intrigue and excitement, Duke and St. John's, because this Rick Pitino team is ready to win now. I mean, they thought they were ready to win last year, but it was a little early. Pitino's now firmly entrenched running that program, coming over from Iona, and
they're hot too. They got off to a rough start early in the year, non-conference play. Auburn beat them as one of the teams. The top
that's what I was trying to say before.
Yeah, they lost.
The teams that Auburn beat,
but they played really, really well the last couple of months. So Big East has had a really down year, but still they controlled UConn. That game was out of hand from the very beginning, and I think they're playing really well. I've got them coming out of their bracket as well, beating. I got them beating Duke. I got them beating UCLA in the Elite 8. Danny, I have your Bruins going to the Elite 8. I think they've got favorable matchups right through to there. So I like St. John's here a lot. Let me give you my other. I'll give you my other picks before we go on. So I got out of that bracket, I've got St. John's. I've got Florida coming out of the South to match up with St. John's in the Final Four. I've got Gonzaga coming out of whatever the West. Sorry, got them beating Purdue in the Elite Eight. And I do have Arizona coming out of I guess Arizona's in the West. Sorry about that. Gonzaga. What is that? Oh, I'm sorry. Arizona would have to beat Arizona in the Elite Eight. Sorry. So I do have Gonzaga coming out of there and Michigan coming out of the Midwest. And
I can't see any major upsets. Except maybe it's a mini upset, and I don't consider it at all. St. John's coming out of the East, and then I think Arizona, Alabama, Michigan. If I had to, pick a Final Four. I mean, I couldn't really say. It doesn't look this year to me, Keith, like they're going to be any major surprises, any shocks. You always look for the shocks, the upsets, because you want to get ahead of the curve. I don't consider if a number 10 seed beats a 7 seed.
That's not huge.
I mean, to me, it's really an upset. It's a mild.
I gave you two.
Tweaked a little. I like when the number 13 beats the number 4, for example. That's an upset to me. Then it captures our attention. Now we're starting to look to see whether they're a Cinderella team.
Well, I gave you a number 12 seed getting to the Sweet 16 in McNeese. And I got High Point winning a game in the first round. So those are both pretty high seeds to advance, at least a game. St. John's, by the way, is under-seeded in my mind as a 5 seed. I thought they played well enough to at least be a 4 and maybe even a 3 when you look at some of these other teams that are seeded in that same level.
How much more of an advantage would it have been to St. John's if they were seeded a couple of places higher? Would it really have mattered at the end?
Again, you got to beat all the teams you play, so it really doesn't matter. But and yes, in Connecticut, I do. Interesting. Danny's, I don't know this one, the 14.5 point line. We were talking about California Baptist. 14.5 point dog only to Kansas. The thing is, I love Kansas in this game too, and I may bet it myself, Danny, but Kansas is like a Jekyll and Hyde. They're really good. They're talented, but they don't show up every day. And Bill Self's done a good job just to get them here. They got 10 losses, some bad ones too in the Big 12. And I do like you said, get over.
No team is supposed to overlook another team. But there's human nature. You got to win 6 games to win the tournament.
Yep.
And these coaches and these players, they read what we read. They look at the brackets. They look at the predictions. They look at all the other schools because they enjoy looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
And I know we hear this nonsense, 1 game at a time. Don't concentrate on anything else. That sounds good, but it's not realistic. It's the same malarkey as we hear team, no scoreboard watching. We have to take care of our own business. Everyone watches the darn scoreboard, even though you absolutely have to win your own game. I get all that. But early in this tournament, you wonder, some of these schools like Kansas you just mentioned, if you're a big favorite over a team like California Baptiste, are you overlooking them? You just might be overlooking them.
That's not a big line. There's a time where Kansas would have been a 30-point favorite over California Baptist. I'll tell you right now, and that's not this time, obviously. But I like Kansas in that game. They'll cover that spread. Do you have a Final Four for me or not? You just have St. John's?
St. John's, Arizona, Alabama, Michigan, if I had to, off the top of my head.
I think Alabama and Michigan are in the same. They're in the same bracket. They can't get the.
I pick Arizona to win it all. If you're asking a prediction, Arizona to merge, winning it all. And St. John's, getting to the Final Four would be great, and I think they're going to get there.
I have them in the Final Four. Yeah.
Who would Duke be playing in this second game? I have a feeling Duke's going out early. Duke is going to play.
Well, Duke's got Siena, by the way, from right here in the Capital District. So But,
yeah, they should take care of business. With
they're going to play the winner of Ohio State TCU, so that is an upset alert.
I have a feeling Duke. I'm making a prediction now. Duke gets eliminated in the second game. Something about the way they've been looking. I've been watching them at the end of the year.
Yeah, Alabama. Danny's question your Alabama pick. You can't have Alabama and Michigan because they'd have to play each other.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right, Danny. That's why I'm hedging. I'm really hedging here.
The whole region over there where Florida is number one. That's the region you missed.
I'm not that high on Florida, too. They're like a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde.
MSU is in that Florida region. They could come out of there. Michigan State didn't play great near the end of the season, but Tom Izzo's a really good tournament coach.
Let me go with Michigan State then.
Michigan State.
I mean, I'm hedging and I'm shaky.
And don't forget the brackets, guys. Everybody, I put the brackets up. Jack, get in the brackets. I'll send you the link if you want.
Those brackets fall apart immediately.
Yours might, but, that's the fun of it. Bracket busters are a lot of fun. When your 2 of your Final Four teams are out in the round 2, you try to hope your rest of it covers so you can get there. It'll be fun. Get in. It's all over my page. Click the link. Everybody else too. I'll share it again. I'll reshare it. I'll send you the link, Jack, just to see if you want to get in. And we'll have some fun with it. It's all for fun. See if we can get a few people in it. What else going on, Jack? Any boxing news we want to talk about before you head into?
We have a special on our show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Glove, Fist, and All Boxing Show. We're going to have on a boxing promoter, Larry Goldberg. He promotes shows in New York, in Atlantic City. And, we'll talk a little about the war going on with Dana White and the boxing promoters. It's going to be interesting to see Dana White, the UFC head, making inroads into boxing, how it affects the sport of boxing, either positively or negatively. And what is UFC guys are going to think of Dana White paying big money to boxers to make his inroads, while the UFC guys are getting, getting paid a bit on the low side, way on the low side compared to what he pays the boxers. So
he feels like a modern day Don King in a way, Dana White.
He does his business. I don't know what to make out of Dana White, but you kind of wonder whether Dana White even likes boxing, whether he wants to even get involved with it. I get the feeling he doesn't like it at all. I mean, I had a little bit dealings slightly with the UFC, a tiny bit, and you got the feeling boxing just isn't for him.
Well, then I don't know why he's getting in it. Why do you get into a business you don't like?
I mean, because the head, Turkey, His Excellency, in Saudi Arabia, who has the big money, him and Dana White are kind of linking up. And Dana White, he sees how he can make big money on this, perhaps. I don't know what Dana White is thinking. I shouldn't even say anything. Look, maybe Dana White's going to do a lot of good. Maybe he's going to do a lot of good. I'm not criticizing Dana White. I'm really, really not. Okay? Maybe he's going to do a great job, but I don't think he's going to take the sport over. I think he's going to meet his match with these different promoters like Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren. They're lifers in this business, and there's plenty of fighters to go around.
Doesn't boxing in its current state need somebody, though, to give it some juice like Dana White might?
Well, boxing's all messed up as it is, and Dana White just promoted a fight with Jay Opataida, the best cruiserweight in the world, cruiserweight champion. And he has this thing called a Zuffa belt. And he displayed it prominently. And the IBF didn't like the idea. They felt their belt was pushed off to the side, so they stripped Opataida of their title. And these fighters don't want to get stripped of their titles if they're fighting the Dana White group. It's a little confusing, and it's a little childish at times as well.
Well, check out Jack and Frank tonight on Glove Fist at 7 p.m. Eastern, and you'll get some more answers and can ask some more questions. And Michael, I don't think we're going to start a CFL show because I couldn't name one player in the Canadian Football League today. So,
all right. Well, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, maybe if the Canadian Football League championship game and the recognizable Americans will give it.
Maybe if they sign, Drake May or something, I might have to start paying attention. Jack, thanks for the show today, guys. Check out Jack and Frank tonight. I'll be back on Wednesday with College Sports Huddle, where we talk a lot more NCAA basketball. We'll see you then, guys. Have a great Monday. Bye-bye. Oop, I missed my thing.